Hi, I'm Adina Lescher, Vice President of Community Development at Smile Train. I'm so excited to be here today with three people I've had the pleasure of working with closely over the past few years. Chelsea Baratto, Ashley Barbour, and Henry Baddour have each, in their own unique way, harnessed the power of social media to share their cleft journeys and amplify those of others. Let's jump right in. Henry, the group you founded, Cleft Proud, now has almost 90,000 followers across your different platforms. Can you tell us about how this group came to be? Why do you think that so many people identify with the photos and stories that you share?
Of course. So I was born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate, and I've had about 15 surgeries related to my cleft. But after my most major one, which caused me to be out of school for about 6 months, I looked online for some sort of support group, and I came up empty. All I found were resources for parents of children affected, but nothing for those children when they grew up. So uh, I felt very alone in that moment, and so I felt like I needed to do something. So no one else had to feel the same way that I did, and so I used my recovery time to create that resource for those affected in my same situation. And now it's like you said, it's grown to over 90,000 followers. And I think the reason that for that is because a lot of people relate to the mission. So not only do we offer resources, but our mission is about empowering those affected and really pushing them to be proud of who they are and what they look like. And that's something that those affected can really relate to working towards. In addition, most people with a cleft have never met anyone else in their family or friends with a cleft as well. And in our community, you can do exactly that with thousands of people, and they can relate and connect and share stories with one another. And that alone is just really special. And in addition, not only is it impactful to just one group, it's impactful to many. For example, when we post a story about an 18-year-old with a cleft, not only is it impactful to those directly affected, but to other groups as well. For example, for adults with a cleft, seeing an 18-year-old who might be almost done with their surgeries, be proud, feeling proud of who they are and what they look like, might really push that person to do the same and work on their mentality and work on becoming cleft proud. In addition, for those affected, maybe younger, seeing someone on the other side of the surgery that they might be about to go through can be really impactful as well for them to see that they're going to be okay because that person's okay as well. And not only that, that person may be thriving. In addition, for parents of children with cleft, seeing an 18-year-old through almost all of their surgeries can be really relaxing and calming, especially an expecting parent. That really can calm them down because they might be freaked out and might not know a lot about cleft in general. And to see someone, who's really doing well and happy is really all they can ask for. And to see that their child will probably feel that same way in a number of years is really calming as well. So for all those reasons, I think people really can identify with Cleft Proud and what we stand for.
All right, sounds great. And I was struck while you were talking by how much social media has changed this world as well. Because I think your story of never meeting someone with a cleft until you were much older is not a unique one. And social media has really allowed us to meet thousands of other people who have similar stories and are at many different points along their journey. So thank you for facilitating that and really opening up the story for so many people to feel cleft proud in their own stories. Chelsea, your page, 700 Smiles, beautifully chronicles your experience with your son, Luca, who was born with a cleft. On the page, you discuss your commitment to being open and sharing your full story of motherhood, not just the positive parts. You've also mentioned how the community that sprang up around 700 Smiles really created itself. What does it mean to you that so many other families see themselves in your story? How has 700 Smiles evolved since you started it?
Thanks, Adina. So our story started at my 19-week ultrasound when I was pregnant, and we went into it expecting to find out naively, I think as many do, whether we were going to be having a little boy or girl, and got to find out about instead all of the very important things that happened during that ultrasound. And I will never forget the feeling of the doctor re-entering the room to come in and tell me that something was wrong with my baby. So they didn't really give me much information, but kind of just sent me on my way and told me to not Google anything and that a specialist would follow up with me. So of course I did what anyone would do in the situation, which was go right to Google. And I just found myself feeling really embarrassed and guilty, but overwhelmingly alone in the situation. So I just made the decision that I just didn't want to stay in that feeling. I didn't want to be alone in this struggle. So I just made a choice to show up with the full story to, my friends, my family, but also on social media, because we just live in a really interesting time where I feel like social media encourages people to share their highlight reel, the best parts of their day, the cleanest parts of their day. And I just decided I was going to do the opposite. And I think that the response was so strong because people were really ready to let their guard down and feel genuine connection. So instead of showing that highlight reel, showing the tough stuff really let people connect and be there for each other's life moments. There's a quote that always reminds me of my motivation, which was, it's the be kind for everyone you meet. Be kind for everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. And I really just wanted to foster the opposite. I didn't want to fight alone, and I wanted to fight my battles with my people behind me and fully informed. So I think that the platform, like I said, it grew from cleft awareness and sharing our story and our surgeries and just talking about what life looked like as a mother with a brand new baby with a cleft and going through those tough surgery days and those long hours of surgery alone. Having that community to have my back just really saved me, and I know has been able to do the same for others, and that just really means the world to me.
And just to echo that, at Smile Train, we've been lucky enough to share your story and Luca's story, and countless people are touched by your bravery and your honesty and by the identification with that same feeling, how scary it can be, and the unknowingness of what to do next. So thank you very much. Do you have a favorite post or story you'd want to share with us?
Yeah, so it was really the very first post, which was announcing what had happened at the ultrasound and what the unknowns were and what I was feeling. It was really scary to write. But once I did, within minutes, there were, like I had said, similar to Henry, I had never met anyone in my life that had a cleft that I knew of. And within minutes on the post, my husband's coworker is connecting me with her neighbor that was born with a cleft. And, we had a neighbor's cousin who had her son with a cleft. And all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I actually have this experiences to draw upon and people to rely on that I thought I didn't have. And if I didn't choose to share what was happening that exact moment, I wouldn't have had that support. So
thank you very much. Ashley, your description of cleft love is twofold. First, you're sharing your journey of life with a cleft, and second, you are dedicated to helping others affected by facial differences and their families. Can you tell us about how cleft love came to be and some things that you've learned since you started this community in 2017?
Yeah, thank you, Adina. So about 5 years ago, I went to the grocery store to do my usual shopping. And at one point I looked up and I saw a baby with a cleft that hadn't been treated yet. I remember I kind of froze for a minute. I had, of course, seen my own baby pictures, but somehow seeing an untreated cleft in person was different. All of a sudden, I had all these questions come into my head that I never knew that I would have if I saw an untreated cleft. Things like, would I feel scared or grossed out? And if I did feel any of those negative emotions, what would that then mean about how I saw myself? But instead of any negative feelings, I felt incredibly drawn to this baby. I was overcome by an immense sense of love, and he was absolutely adorable. I ended up going up and introducing myself to his mom and grandma, and I told them that I was born with a bilateral cleft too, and that I just needed to come over and tell them how beautiful their baby was. And we stood there in the middle of the apple aisle and talked for quite a while. And that experience was very healing for me, but I was also able to see how helpful it was for them as well, for these people who were just starting out on this a journey that feels very long at times. It was helpful for them to see someone who has made it to the other side, and that on the other side, it's more than okay. And so I started sharing my story. And although I was scared at first to post it so publicly, the response I got was overwhelmingly positive. And I just realized that there is a real need for cleft-affected voices in the world that can tell our story. And so out of all of that, Cleft Love was born. And what I found is that even though I started the page mostly for the cleft community, the overarching themes of love and acceptance are universal, and they appeal to a much wider audience.
And thinking about that family that you met in the apple aisle and how they were the first people really impacted by your story and your journey, and then that expanded to thousands of others who follow your page now. It's just really tremendous. Do you have a favorite post or story you might want to share with us?
I do. This is a post that I wrote about my discovery that loving yourself is an inside job. When I got my rhinoplasty, read nose job, a few years ago, I expected people to notice. Although I did the surgery for myself, for my own self-concept, part of me also thought it might be the final part of the transformation that would make me traditionally beautiful to the rest of the world. When the nurse removed the bandages, it's almost as if I expected fireworks, the earth to stop for a moment, some sign that would tell me that I was finally done. And in that moment, I thought I might finally feel whole and love myself completely. And so the moment came, I held my breath and I squeezed my eyes closed. Everything came off easily. The nurse told me to look in the mirror. The light in the room was still garish. The tile was shiny. A sterile scent was in the air. In the mirror, I saw myself looking back at me. My nose was still slightly swollen, and although there were no fireworks or angels singing, already I could see a difference. And so I set out to face the world with my new nose, ready to mentally take note of reactions, wondering how people would respond. At the local bagel shop, I ran into my friend's college-age siblings. I looked at them expectantly while we caught up. I watched intently for micro changes in their expressions. Nothing. A week later, I met a good friend to do some shopping. I saw her in the parking lot, and as I climbed out of my car, I held my breath with anticipation. Surely she would see it. She might even be speechless. But again, there was nothing. This happened over and over again. The biggest reaction I got was someone thinking I had lost weight. She must have noticed something was different, but couldn't put her finger on it. I've come to accept my new face. It's become my new normal. I forget the face I used to see in the mirror until I see her in pictures. She was beautiful too. Although I love the subtle difference the rhinoplasty made, I found it wasn't magic. I still feel insecure at times. My top lip isn't full enough. The scars have contracted up over time, tugging it up in the middle. I find myself thinking yet again, if only I was brave enough to do the surgery that would address that, then finally I would be happy. Finally, there would be fireworks and the earth would stop for a moment And finally, I would feel whole and love myself completely. But I stopped myself because I recognized those thoughts from before the last surgery. Just one more, I thought. And so I realized it's not more external work I need to do, but internal work. It turns out feeling whole and loving myself are an inside job and not one with a finite end. It's a lifelong task, but I'm ready to take it on because who I am and who I've always been is worth it. Cue the fireworks.
I can't think of more perfect words to really capture the beauty and the complexity and the challenges and the pride that there is to be found in the cleft journey. So thank you so much for sharing, Ashley. Now we have one last question that I'd love for each of you to address. What advice do you have to others who are looking to either build or join their own cleft community? And Henry, we'll start with you.
First off, I'd recommend volunteering and trying to volunteer with any cleft organizations near you. Though we all might do somewhat separate things, we all are for the same goal, and that's a pretty easy way to start. And then in addition, maybe more specifically to Cleft Proud, I'd recommend reaching out to people through our platform and through this conference as well. We might be in different stages in our cleft journey or in life, but we all have advice to give, and that advice can really change someone's life, especially in the cleft community. So,
excellent, thank you. And Chelsea?
Yeah, I echo everything Henry said, and I'd also add, just go ahead and share your story. I think that everyone's is uniquely different, no matter how similar your surgery list might be, or if you've had the same surgeon, or no matter the case, what you bring to the table and what your experience and your emotions, it's completely unique to you. So we need your story.
Yeah, I second that. I know the entire cleft community is very lucky that the three of you have decided to do that. And lastly, Ashley, any advice you'd like to share?
So there definitely have been times in my life where I really wanted to get involved, but I didn't know how. So I definitely understand how challenging it can be to figure out what to do or where to go. I will say Smile Train is always incredibly approachable. If you're ever at a loss, I would recommend reaching out to them for sure. What I have found is to take something that you're good at and use that as your way into becoming more active. I've always liked writing, and so for me, sharing my story that way has worked for me. Also, as Henry and Chelsea mentioned, there are a lot of social media groups for cleft-affected people or parents of cleft-affected children. And I personally have found a great sense of belonging in these groups. So I would definitely recommend joining some of these.
Before we wrap up, I'd just like to thank all three of you again for joining us today and for sharing how you've built your own cleft communities. Countless individuals and families relate to and find comfort in reading your words, and I look forward to watching your groups continue to grow. I encourage all of our attendees to visit and share the Cleft Proud, 700 Smiles, and Cleft Love pages by visiting each panelist's bio section. And now we will open up the floor for Q&A. Well, before we jump into questions, I just want to say thank you to everyone who joined this panel. We had such great comments throughout, and we'll be sure to share those with Henry, Chelsea, and Ashley as well. We really appreciate your feedback. And we had a lot of great questions come in, so we'll try and get to as many as we can in the time that we have available to us. So Henry, starting with you, this is actually a bit of a technical question. If someone wants to share their story with Cleft Proud, how do they go about getting in touch with you? And what's your production content process like? How do you approach it from that perspective?
Yeah, well, I think we try to post as many stories as possible, and that's kind of the number one way we do all this. But it's pretty easy. So you can go to our website, cleftproud.com/submit story. It's actually as easy as that, and it has a form where you can fill out your username for usually Instagram. You can leave that blank if you don't have one, a picture, and then your story, and you submit it, and that's it. It'll come to us. And again, we try to do it in chronological order. So, but we really do try to post as many people as possible.
And do you have people reaching out to you every day? There's so many great stories that you share.
Yeah. And I guess I'll second that by saying if we don't post your story within a week or two, don't worry, we didn't forget about you. It's just we got a lot of people submitting stories, and we do really try to keep it in chronological order.
And the fact that you have that many is really a testament to how many people are engaging with your page and want to be heard in this space. So that's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Chelsea, what you said about sharing your true journey on social media, many people this session identified with. Have you found that it changes the way that people share their own stories with you? And before you even answer that, I hope that everyone can say hi to Luca, who has also joined us for this live Q&A. So thanks very much, Luca.
Yes, absolutely. I think that when you show up, with your vulnerability and show everyone kind of the true behind the scenes, that they're willing to do the same with you. And it just makes for deeper relationships and more honesty and really being able to support each other fully because you've got the full story now. So.
Absolutely. And Luca's wearing a pretty special shirt today too, isn't he?
Yeah. Show your Superman.
Yeah, looking good. And then moving over to Ashley, this is a tough question, but someone wanted to know how do you overcome the fear? You want to share your story, you're ready to take that next step, you want to make those connections, but there's still something blocking you, there's still something in the way. Do you have any advice?
For me, I was very nervous to put my story out there publicly. The internet can be a wild place, and I wasn't sure what kind of reactions I would get. But for me, I just sort of closed my eyes and jumped, honestly. When I started the Cleft Love page, I remember the night very clearly when I started it and I decided I was going to make it public for everyone to see. And I think I literally closed my eyes when I was like, okay, share. And then I like waited, and I remember I didn't tell anyone about it in the beginning because I wasn't sure what would happen. But so for me, once I finally gathered up a little bit of courage, I just jumped and I haven't looked back. So
I think that's very good advice, and something that all of us face at some point in our life too, closing your eyes and just pressing that button. So thank you, Ashley. And then I had another question for you, Ashley, that just came in. What do you tell yourself when you're down? How do you make sure that you move forward from that moment? Those are feelings that we all experience. And after you address that, I'd love to hear from Henry and Chelsea as well.
So I think for me, when I'm down, because it does, still happen, I think I just remind myself that feelings are temporary. And so just because I'm feeling sad or upset today, it's not going to last forever. And then I try to do something that brings me joy. So that's usually for me being active in some way. But most of all, I think it's just reminding myself that, this feeling isn't going to last forever and there's always tomorrow.
Absolutely. Henry, do you want to weigh in on that as well?
Yeah, of course. I second what Ashley said. I think I do try to find something that makes me happy, and similarly, I like to keep active. But also, for me, the main way is through connecting with other people, whether that is my family, my wife, or people on the Cleft Proud community. It's a great reminder that I'm not alone and that I have people to talk to.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And Chelsea, any thoughts for when things get really tough and how you keep moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm lucky I've got this built-in little guy who is usually able to smile pretty much everything. So that definitely helps. But also, again, the community and the people I've been connected with, knowing, you know, that there is another side to it, and having stories and resources to know, you know, what a surgery day would look like and what it's going to feel like and what to expect, and having that information and those connections and support has just made everything much easier.
He's so beautiful. Yeah. And then one last question that came in to all of you. So we have a new family here who's looking to start building their community and making those connections. So, you know, we've shared all of your websites and stories. Any advice outside of reaching out that you'd like to share? Do you think it would be helpful to proactively share their own story, or are there, you know, certain groups that you think would be a really good fit for a family who's, you know, just has a new baby born with cleft? Open to anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely reaching out to the communities that exist is a great place to start. But yeah, also sharing your own story, because like I said, you might be surprised to find out that even though you don't personally know anyone that's cleft affected, that, you know, you're probably connected with people that do. So finding those connections can often be closer to you than you realized until you kind of put that out there.
And echoing that, I think it's important to reach out to other parents who are going through what you're going through, but then also finding the stories of cleft affected people, just because I think it helps to give you that view that on the other side, things are going to be all right.
Yeah, I think all of our stories on this panel come from and begin with taking a leap. And so I think I really recommend taking that leap and either posting your story or connecting with other people, like the other two panelists have said.
Yeah, and you know, to close that out, everyone on this screen and all of the speakers here today and all of the participants, that's how we got here. Someone made the first move, and we connected on social media or via phone call or whatever it is, and we've been able to do so many wonderful things together. So Smile Train, we feel so lucky to be in contact with each of you, and that each of you come to us, share your thoughts, ideas, and that we're able to partner together to really be a support for the community. So thank you very much for everything that you do and for participating today. It was great to have each of you here. And I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the conference. Have a great day.